in our reading. As we look into wisdom, let's go back to the book of Job. And it is certainly a good book to go to when you are looking into the idea of wisdom. So as we start out there, Job chapter 28, and we'll begin again at verse 12 and read to the end of the chapter. But where can wisdom be found, and where is the place of understanding? Man does not know its value, nor is it found in the land of the living. The deep says, it is not in me, and the sea says, it is not with me. It cannot be purchased for gold, nor can silver be weighed for its price. It cannot be valued in the gold of Ophir, and precious onyx or sapphire. Neither gold nor crystal can equal it. Nor can it be exchanged for jewelry of fine gold. No mention shall be made of coral or quartz, for the price of wisdom is above rubies. The topaz of Ethiopia cannot equal it, nor can it be valued in pure gold. From where, then, does wisdom come? And where is the place of understanding? It is hidden from the eyes of all the living, and concealed from the birds of the air. Destruction and death say, we have heard a report about it with our ears. God understands its way, and he knows its place. For he looks to the ends of the earth and sees under the whole heavens, to establish a weight for the wind and apportion the waters by measure. When he made a law for the rain and a path for the thunderbolt, then he saw wisdom and declared it. He prepared it, indeed, he searched it out. And to man he said, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. Lots of good things to think about there as we read this morning, and as I read it again, I'm intrigued. Just to mention, I'm intrigued by the idea in verse 26 where it says he made a law for the rain and a path for the thunderbolt. That gives us some things to think about. Certainly an interesting statement, but nonetheless, not to lose sight of the idea that we're trying to get at here in this lesson today is that wisdom resides with God. He knows how everything works. He knows how everything was made. He knows what is going on in each of our lives, and he knows the ins and the outs of all things. There are, as we talked about this morning just a little bit, there are two types of wisdom that we can talk about, and they of course are the wisdom of men and the wisdom from above. If we turn to James chapter 3, and at verse 13 beginning, it says, who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show by good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, demonic. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Again, you can know a people by their fruits. It says that you shall know them by your fruits and by their fruits in the scriptures. And as we walk through our lives, people can understand, and hopefully they see, that there's something different about us, about you and I, because we are claiming Christ as our Savior, and we are ordering our lives to match up to that. And that you just can't help but have that stand out in a world, in a society where there is so much influence of evil in the world around us, that when you live in a righteous manner, that it stands out like a sore thumb. And you can see those fruits, and hopefully they are evident in every one of our lives to those around us. But you can also, in a like manner, see the fruit of wisdom. You can see when people make good decisions. Sometimes we make poor decisions in our lives, and we've hopefully learned from those things. And those decisions probably had some fruit that came along with them. If you make the poor decision to break the law, one of the fruits of that may well be that you end up paying a price for that. I mean, that is the way that is the way that it should be, if you will. And no doubt, if you live a life that is contrary to the truth, contrary to righteousness, you are going to certainly going to pay some sort of a price in the long run. But the fruits are evident and there. And one of the things that we can see, that we kind of read about here in this idea in verses 16, it says, where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. The wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy. As we look at that, we also can add into that meekness. And in verse 13, we read about doing works that are done in the meekness of wisdom. If somebody is acting in wisdom, they're going to be calm. They are not going to have anything to prove. If they are taking the high road, if you will, and ordering their steps according to the scriptures, they're going to be calm about that. There is not going to be a rush to qualify their actions, because they have made the wise choice, even if it means some temporary difficulty or difficulty in the long run. And as a Christian, when you put on Christ and you're going against all of the principalities and powers of the world, if you will, there's going to be perhaps some difficulties that come about. But there is something to be said for having the calm, the meekness. That doesn't mean weak, but having the meekness of knowing that you have made the right choice. One thing that I learned over time in dealing, in speaking with, and in my old job, if you will, as owning a driving school, we had to be inspected by police officers, by state highway patrolmen, who were trained to inspect the schools. And one of the things that I learned very early on is that the less that I said, the easier those things went. Because when they're looking and they pull somebody over on the side of the road, or when they're investigating a crime, it's usually the loudest person that is the guiltiest. It's the kind of the way that it goes. And so as they would be conducting the things that they needed to do, their operations, their investigations, if you are constantly talking and willing to tell them all about everything, then that raises a red flag. And that doesn't show a calm. It doesn't show a meekness if you are riled up and you're trying to qualify every little thing. It's something that the world notices. It's something that law enforcement and those that are tasked with finding those that are doing wrong, something that they understand. And in some sort of way here, we kind of see that God said it first, that there is a meekness that is involved in wisdom. And that meekness has to be coupled, of course, with good conduct. It is entirely possible to be doing things that are evil and that are bad and be totally calm about that. There are those hardened criminals that can speak about, and if you watch an interview, if you get onto one of the streaming services where you can stream television shows and so on, you can see interviews with people who have been convicted of many murders. And really the best word to describe it is psychopathic tendencies. You see a person who has killed people in cold blood, and they're able to just speak calmly and easily about those things. And we realize that perceived meekness or that perceived gentleness is hiding something else. And so you have to be able to recognize the meekness of wisdom, but you also, it has to necessarily be coupled with good conduct. You can't have the meekness that comes from the Lord. You can't have the wisdom that comes from the Lord and be acting upon it and do evil things. And so that's something that as we look around us in the religious world, even, when you are looking at where you're going to worship or where you're going to align yourself in the religious world, what is it that you're going to align yourself with? What group are you going to attach yourself with in the name of Christ? You have to stop and take a look at what they say and also what they do. There are so many people out there screaming Christ's name, but they are doing the exact opposite. Today, my family and I were at an Eagle Scout ceremony for one of Jonathan's friends in the Scouts, and it was at a place that formerly used to be a denominational church which the group that it was attached to they do some of the most vile things in the name of Christ. I will say, thankfully, they have disbanded, and it is now a different organization that has taken over that building. That's actually comforting to me that they are no longer out there spouting some of the things that they did. But we can see, it was quite evident, and if you look around in the religious world, you can see these things that are said in the name of Christ, but then the actions of those very same people and groups, they don't line up with what we would see in the wisdom of Christ. And we need to be willing to look for those things. We need to be willing to see those things, and we need to be willing to act with wisdom in our next steps as we go down this road. Something that I mentioned just a few moments ago too is that meekness does not equal weakness. A lot of times, especially in this world, sometimes people will want to act with bravado and they want to act tough. You'll see this among men, mostly. Mostly it's us that get involved in such silliness. But you'll see people trying to put on a show, kind of like a rooster, strutting around and trying to show his strength to the other roosters. And you'll see that happen sometimes among human beings. And the idea there is that you need to act strong and act tough so that people don't think you're weak. And as Christians, again, when we're acting in wisdom and we have the meekness that is supposed to be accompanied by wisdom, then we don't need to strut around and act tough. We shouldn't have that kind of an attitude amongst ourselves. In 2 Timothy chapter 1, and starting at verse 7, 2 Timothy chapter 1, and at verse 7, it says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. Therefore do not be ashamed of the testimony of our Lord, nor of me, his prisoner, but share with me in the sufferings for the gospel, according to the power of God." Again, sharing in those sufferings, not strutting around and saying, I'm so strong, but understanding that it is God who has not given us a spirit of fear. We shouldn't be cowering in the corner. We shouldn't be weak in that way, but we should not be one who has to go out there and prove a point at every turn. We need to have that meekness that comes with wisdom. Our strength is simply in God through his Son. There is nothing of ourselves that is involved here except our diligence and our desire to give him and allow him in our lives to have the the authority that he owns. We've mentioned it recently in a lesson that it seems kind of strange to say that we need to give God the authority because he owns it, and we're going to face that authority one way or another at the end of our lives. But we need to yield to him. We need to be willing to take that back seat to God, if you will, and let him be true, let his word be true, and we need to simply be obedient. And that takes some meekness. It's, again, not weakness to give in to the almighty power of God. It is meekness and it is wisdom, but it does not mean that you are weak. In fact, given the climate of politics and religion in the world, you are among the most strong if you take a stand for the Lord, and you do that with wisdom. We need to also understand that at some point we might have to take some instruction. We might have to learn some new things. We can be a good Bible student. We can know and understand the scriptures very, very well, but still we learn, and we might not catch on to something as fast as another brother or sister. And they might be able to see that and recognize that, and they might be able to point that out to us, and we should not be taken aback when that happens. We should be willing to be humble, to have that meekness, to act in wisdom and understand, okay, I can see this in the scriptures, I see that they're correct in this, and I need to make a change in my life. And that's, every single one of us is going to fall into that at some point in our lives. None of us are going to make it out without some sort of correction. When I was in elementary school, I happened to make it through school without getting a detention. I was a rule follower, and I tried my hardest to do that, but that doesn't mean that I was without need of correction, and I had to have correction from time to time from teachers and so on. And I know that sometimes when you're not used to that, it can be scary to be corrected. It can grate against what is comfortable, of course, in your mind and in your thinking. But you need to be willing to accept instruction. It makes you stronger along the way. And you don't want to ever go down the path where you start to believe, even in some subconscious way, that you know it all, that you know that you cannot be told something by anyone else. So being willing to accept instruction is important. Proverbs 19 and at verse 20 says, "Listen to counsel and receive instruction, that you may be wise in your latter days." Now, the older we get, the more of this instruction that we should have received and probably have, but it's up to us to do something with it. You can sit through college classes, but if you don't put to use any of the things that you've learned, if you don't think your way through, that it will have done you no good. The same thing with reading the scriptures. You can read the scriptures, but unless you actually put these things into action in your lives, then it's not going to do any good. Wisdom understands the need for instruction. One of the sure signs that you are gaining some wisdom in life is that you realize that you need instruction, that you don't know everything, that when you come to a difficult place, perhaps in the scriptures, you're coming up to something and you just don't understand it, you'll go and ask someone else to help you understand it, and together you look through the scriptures. Not that you're taking the word of man at any value, but another brother or sister that is on the same path can certainly be a help in our understanding. So wisdom understands the need for instruction. You seek out the ones that know the things that you need to know. It's important that we, again, are not, in our own minds, the smartest person in the room, because everyone else will eventually pass you up. And no matter how smart you think you are, you'll find out, you'll be humbled at some point, someday. We have to understand the brevity of physical life as well. If we are gaining wisdom in our life, the more days that we are allotted to live, that we are blessed to live on this earth, the more we begin to understand how short life is. We put things in their proper perspective, and we take James at face value and as the truth when we read that life is but a vapor. It's here for a moment and then it's gone. And when you stop and think about all of the lives and the meaningful things that have been done in people's lives throughout history, you could name, the founding fathers of this country that lived lives, and they saw some things. They did some things. They really lived, if you will, in their time. And many others that we could look at throughout the scriptures, Moses and Noah and Solomon, all of those that lived rather important lives and did rather important things. And some of them lived much longer than we will ever live physically. But again, there is an end to those things. There was an end to those lives, and there will be for us. And I would imagine that if you could ask Methuselah about his 969 years, he would probably say that they went quickly. He'd probably say that they went quicker as they went on. We have to, and that's something that we see as we get older. Hopefully we see that, and hopefully we put things in the right perspective if we are wise. We need to, of course, learn to number our days. Going back to the Psalms, going back to Psalm number 90, Psalm 90, and at verse 12, it says, "In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you," I'm in 91. Go back to 90, at verse 12. "So teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." Teach us to number our days, so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And as we go back to the beginning of Psalm 90, it says, "A prayer of Moses, the man of God. And Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations," understanding where God came from, understanding who he is, and understanding the eternal nature of God. And here in this psalm, we also see that he says that it is wise to number our days. As we think on those things, and as we go through our lives, as we think about wisdom, we've talked a lot about it today. In fact, you've got a lot of homework if you want it, between the bulletin and this morning's lesson and then this evening's lesson, to go and check these things out further and to look further into the scriptures and think about wisdom, think about how to develop it, how to seek it in our lives, what it should look like a little bit, talking a little bit about that this evening, what wisdom should look like in our lives. Not a one of us has the market on these things cornered, as I mentioned this morning. I stand before you talking about these things, but I know that just like everybody else, I've got a ways to go in the department of wisdom. But we should seek it every day. We should seek it for each other and with each other, and understand that we may not have tomorrow, so we should have a little bit of a fire lit under us to gain that wisdom. As we think on these things, if there be anybody among us that would like to make the most wise decision that a human being can make and be baptized for the remission of sins, then by all means, why wait another day? If you're catching this lesson sometime in the future, whenever that may be, on YouTube or on our website, we would certainly love to study these things further with you. And no matter if we are here or I am here or not, we understand there are many in the Lord's church throughout the world that would love nothing more than to look into these things together with you. So seek out those that know and understand the truth. If, again, among us today, if there is anybody that needs the prayers of the saints, one of the wisest things you can do is to recognize that you need help, that you need the Lord, that you need the prayers of the saints for difficulties and so on. And if we can be of assistance, we stand ready to be that family that will take those steps with you. Please let those needs be known as together we stand and sing.
To Christ be loyal.